بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المستحدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد
وعلى بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان ولعن الله وعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الذين يذكرون الله قائما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Living a purpose-driven life has been our ongoing topic since Friday. Tonight is our last lecture on this topic. Let me also express my gratitude and my gratefulness to the Husseini Association here for their invitation to myself and allowing me the honor to be here for the past 3 days. I enjoy my time in Winnipeg. It's a beautiful community and one that is thirsty for knowledge, and I really enjoy my time, especially with the youth here. So I'm grateful to the execs and to Mr. President for the opportunity. May Allah bless all of you, inshallah.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
The discussion for the past 2 nights has been revolving around Hadaf Shinasi. To understand our purpose in this life, and to, when we understand that purpose, to live that purpose at that moment. I think we all know why we're here and why we're created. I think to live a life that models that purpose is the kamal, is the perfection. And the premise that I had just mentioned to all of you on Friday evening was the fact that sometimes when the storms of life hit us, when things become very difficult, we end up asking ourselves very instrumental questions like, what am I doing here? What is all this? Is there really a purpose behind it? Am I just kind of like, living out this sort of like a game almost, that sometimes the word's being used by our youth. And last night really was the crux of our discussion. We tackled 2 very important questions. Number 1 was the idea that I didn't ask for all of this, Malala. Nobody asked me for my permission before creating me. So Allah creates me, gives me existence, and it puts me through one test after one test after one test. And it seems like every test gets tougher than the one that's previous. And then after all of that 65, 75, 8 years of anxiety and stress and difficulty, then He does what? He judges me based on how well I've done that test. And I end up in the hellfire or in heaven, forever and ever. That's a lot to do, a lot to put me through without my permission, and we examined that last night. And then secondly, the most important question, if you ask me, in this Hadaf Shinasi discussion, is the idea that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows my aqibat, knows where I'll end up, knows my destiny, then why am I carrying out this game? Why am I going through the motions when God knows where I'll end up? Inshallah, both of these answers were answered last night to some extent. Hopefully you got the answer that you're looking for. But today, as a final discussion to all of you, I wanted to present this idea that, look, I'm not somebody who, me personally, I'm not somebody who thinks that what I'm saying to all of you and to myself is easy. It's not. But I'm saying it to all of you and myself as a challenge. And I want all of you, especially my youth, to accept Islam as today's challenge. It's a challenge for you to live a life of Islam today. It's very, very easy to go down the route where you become one of the norm of today's society. You have a little bit of a sprinkling of the deen on top of your life, but otherwise you live your life just like everyone else does in the West here. Right? Taking the road that's less traveled, as they say in poetry, is the challenge I present in front of all of you. And it requires courage. I want to begin to speak a little bit about shuja'at today, and then end off looking at the idea of a very important analogy and trying now to keep up with this life that we want. Shuja'at in Islam is a whole discussion. Who is a true shaji in Islam? Who's a true courageous one in Islam? It's an entire ashra, it's an entire topic of Mawzu. Just isharatan, a little bit of indication for all of you. Shuja'at in Islam has nothing to do with physical strength, number one. Courage and bravery is not how much you can physically dominate your enemy. Nor is it how many lives have you and your army killed as opposed to how many lives your enemy has killed. Has nothing to do with how well you can maneuver a sword on a battlefield. Shuja'at is not physical strength in Islam. True courage, true shuja'at, the highest level of shuja'at, is that when you are at a junction in the road where the path that goes towards the right is the path of the desires of Allah, and the path to the left is the path of the desires of yourself. And in that junction, you choose to tread the path of the desires of Allah. That decision is courage in Islam, is shuja'at in Islam. To choose the hawa of Allah or the hawa of yourself. To choose the needs of Allah or the needs of yourself, that is the shuja'at that we need in this day and age. I'll give you a couple examples. I mentioned that this University of Karbala has just had a darsgah. It's not some story to be retold every single year. There are lessons and principles and morals and values to be extracted from this event in Karbala for us to pave the path of our life. Right? One individual that is the true symbol of courage on the day of Ashura is Abul Fazl Abbas. Now, just a few points about him, very quickly. He was chosen by Amir al-Mu'mineen for this very specific day. All of you know that. He sent his brother Aqil, Amir al-Mu'mineen did, who was an expert in genealogy, to go and find out a tribe that can produce for me a son who is physically strong, who can defend or be beside my son Hussein on the day of Ashura. Okay. Finds a woman, al-Mu'mineen, marries her, has Abu Fazl as his son. On the day of Ashura, Abu Fazl was 33 years old, some say. And he was a giant of a man. He was enormous, powerful, strong. These stories that we hear sometimes where he would stand and sometimes the smallest of horses would go through his legs are not fictional stories. That's how a giant that he was. Sometimes, we hear the Masai or we hear the Fadaila of Abu Fazl and we kind of think, okay, those of you who have been to Karbala, you know that Furat, the Nahar or the banks of Furat, you reach that after going down a hill. Now they have steps, of course. We know that he's one of, if not the only man on the day of Ashura that reached the banks of Furat, correct? Filled that musk of Sakina, the water skin of Sakina, and made his way back towards the tent in the Khayma. Do we ever stop and realize how he was able to get to the banks of Furat? Okay, we're talking about 30,000 individuals who were lined up to block water from getting to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. So he roars into the Maidan of Karbala, the battlefield of Karbala, and either two things happen. Either the enemy split, such that they let him go right to the Furat, don't touch him, or he fought his way to the banks of Furat. Correct? But there was enough of a fight or enough of fear of the enemy for this man to enter the Maidan, go down the hill, fill up the mush, go up the hill, and go towards the Khayma. That's huge. Either it's the fact that his simple existence caused fear in 30,000 individuals who were well equipped with weapons, or that one individual fought his way to go down the hill, back up the hill. Whatever the case, both situations, whatever it is, both situations really talks about the fact that this man was a warrior for the Ashura. He's watching his Mawla, his master, his world now, about the same, slowly but surely dying of thirst. He hears al-adash of small children who are dying of thirst. He knows that if I'm giving ijazah, if I'm given permission for a second, for a moment now, I can end all this misery. I can bring water to my Mawla, I can quench the thirst of those small children. In an instant. At the age of his Jawani, at the extreme point of his youth, at the age of 32, 33, having that brute strength, that physical prowess, that courage, he had the skill set of his father in the battlefield. So not only was he physically strong, he was a fighter, a skilled fighter, trained by the best of the best of the best. All of this now around a 32, 33-year-old who can see his loved ones now suffering and dying, and he's told by Imam Hussein to put the sword away. Correct? Put the sword away. We're not here for that, Abbas. We're here for something else. Is there anywhere, my elders, anywhere where you have heard from a bigger alim than me or in your own readings that he challenged that very notion with Imam Hussein? No, not that I've heard. Instantly he put his sword away. At that moment now the hujjat of Allah is saying one thing, his desire is saying another thing. And he immediately closed down the path of what he wants and went down the path of the hujjat of Allah. That's what? That's courage. That's courage. That's shuja'at. You come to his father, Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay, very quickly. The Prophet of Allah's time in Medina was riddled with wars. 80 plus history says. Right? Imam Ali Zulfiqar was very, very busy during the time of Medina. They say every war he was there front and center, except for maybe one or two wars. The Prophet now leaves this world. The era of the three Khulafa begin. His Zulfiqar is quiet. Doesn't come out. The Zulfiqar comes out again during his Khilafat al-Zahari of 4.5 years during his own 3 civil wars. Siffin, Jamal, Nahrawan, correct? In the 23 years, his sword didn't come out. Historians have said that we talk about the glory of the wars of Amir al-Mu'minin. We talk about the 35 in Badr, and we talk about Amr ibn Abdul and Khandaq, the Dawr al-Khaybar. No doubt that is the fada'il of Amir al-Mu'minin. But the shuja'at of Amir al-Mu'minin reached its peak during the 23 years of the Dawr al-Three Khulafa. Understand my point, please. Understand my point, please. That's when we talk about his courage. Why? Because the deen required one thing from him, and maybe his desire wanted something else. And he was very vocal. You know, we talk about the khamoshi and the quietness of Amir al-Mu'minin. I'm sorry, he wasn't quiet. He was very vocal. Pick up his khutbahs in Nahj al-Balagha. Sheikh Sharia is one that's very, very famous. Khutbah number 3 in Nahj al-Balagha. You can feel the dard and the pain of Amir al-Mu'minin. The old die off, the young become old. I'm still waiting for my God to be given to me. If I pull out my Zulfiqar, then I say that Ali is hungry for power and government, right? If I put the Zulfiqar away, they say Ali is fearful of death. What's a man to do? In that state now, he knows that the deen is an infant. Please follow my point. The deen is an infant, only 23 years old. It's nothing for a religion. He knows that Rome and Iran back then were waiting. The last hope they had was the fact that the Prophet of Allah would die, and with his death, Islam would die also. That was their last hope. Until Khadir happened. And we call Khadir the day of the hopelessness of the enemy. Because they never accounted for the fact that the Prophet of Allah would give this entire empire to Amir al-Mu'minin, and he did, and that crushed the enemy. But still he realized that these enemies were lurking on the outside waiting for some sort of internal dispute to happen, come and pounce and destroy the deen. He knew that much. And he knew if I pulled out my Zulfiqar and got my Khilafat back, which he could very easily, I'm sorry by the way, that the deen would be shredded into pieces. The deen was not strong enough to survive that moment. So what does he do? He puts his Zulfiqar away. And watches the first Khalifa, the second Khalifa, the third Khalifa, one by one, run their era, do their Khilafat, and then of course the Awam would come and beg him to please become our next Khalifa. That era of 23 years was a true shaja'at of Amir al-Mu'minin. The path of the deen wanted one thing, maybe his own path wanted something else. To the point where Abu Sufyan approaches him and says, Ali, this khilafat is not theirs. It belongs to the Bani Hashim. You give me the green light, I'll fill the streets of Medina with blood, you'll have your khilafat back. For someone like me, I would sit there and sign a temporary truce with my enemy. Let's work together, get my khilafat back. After that, you're again my enemy. But within seconds, he says to Abu Sufyan that you are actually the cause of this entire fitna to begin with. That's courage. This is a hadith by Imam Jafri Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. It's a very powerful tradition. A very powerful tradition. It's actually a hadith Qudsi. A hadith Qudsi is that hadith that are the words of Allah directly that are not found in the Quran, correct? So all Allah begins with, Allah has said. Comes to the Prophet and then it gets to the sixth Imam. So the sixth Imam says the Prophet of Allah narrates, that Allah narrates, that it's a lengthy hadith, but the portion that refers to this portion of my lecture is this. Allah says that when my servants choose my desires over their desires, hawaya ala hawaka, my desires, what God wants over what they want. And sometimes there is a fork in the road. Okay? He says a number of things happen. Now Allah says one of them is, he says, فَأَتَتْهُ الدُّنْيَا. Allah says when my creations choose me over their own desires, Allah says, I will bring the dunya to them. I will bring the dunya to them. They don't need to chase the dunya. There are some of the mu'mineen, mashallah, who are very pious, very mutadayyin, very God-conscious, very God-centric, and they also have the dunya wrapped around their finger. And you wonder, wow, I wonder what he does or what she does to have the best of both worlds. What I've been asking for all of you to do for the past 2 nights takes courage. I accept it. Not easy. Last night I asked my youth, I asked them to be that one person that walks into a room where every single person in the room is wearing a white, bright t-shirt, and you walk in wearing a fluorescent pink t-shirt. I asked them to do that. I asked destined to stand out. Not to be isolated, but be distinct from everybody else. And we have to make a conscious decision while we live in the West, that do I want to hold on to my Islamic values or do I want to assimilate in this society? Because I'm sorry, you cannot have it both ways. I'm sorry. You cannot have it both ways. And if you decide, let's say that no, I'm going to raise my kid as somebody who's God-fearing, then you're going to have to sometimes walk into a room of white t-shirts wearing a very bright yellow t-shirt. So that every single eye is on you, and that requires what? Courage, shaja'at. Now you say, well, no, we have to live here now, what about school, what about work? I'm not saying for you to be a hermit, or for you not to integrate. No, of course not. You live, absolutely. But when it comes time for those two paths to happen, courage is that we go down the path of the law. That's courage. Okay? So I'm not naive, guys. I'm not thinking that to myself, oh, it's easy, just, live a purpose-driven life, find the line within, it's easy. No, it's very difficult. It's very hard. That's why the hadith says that Allah gives the reward of the deed based completely on the effort it took to perform that deed. Effort and the reward are hand in hand. The more difficult that amal is, the higher the reward is given by Allah. Because Allah is process-driven, not result-driven. I talk about this in Shaban in April, if you remember. I talked about the fact that we live in a society that's based on results, so we don't understand a system that's based on effort. And Allah's system is based on effort, on talash, on koshish, on mehnat, on zahmat, on jihad, on all these things. He's not consumed with results. He's consumed with efforts. الَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لِنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. If you struggle in my way, you're a mujahid or mujahida, fina, in our path, Allah said, I'll open up doors for you. Open doors for you. I'm asking you to adopt courage and struggle. What ends up happening is that because we are obsessed with results, we undermine the efforts that we make. And we don't understand that sometimes it's about the climb up the mountain, not the mountaintop itself. And the West will tell our youth it's useless to climb the mountain if you can't get to the mountaintop. Asad, the mountain's too big, there's no way I'm going to get to the top, so khalas, don't even attempt the climb. Allah says, no, Baba, attempt the climb, man. Get halfway through the mountain, doesn't matter. A quarter of it, that's fine. At least work, effort, try hard. Show me that you care about it. And if you die halfway up the mountain, I'll accept that half mountain effort. Because sometimes it takes an effort of one mountain to go up half the mountain. That's up to you. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Mic reduced a little bit, I'm sorry. There's an echo as well. I don't know if software is there. But can I have just the echo reduced a little bit? I'm sorry. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet of Allah says that worship Allah, please listen very carefully. Worship Allah to the best of your ability. To the best of your ability. Everyone has their own ability. Not the best of their ability, or the best of your neighbor's ability, or the best of your brother's, no, the best of your ability. There are people who will spend their entire life trying to wake up for Fajr. Their entire life. They'll set 3 alarms, the last verse of Surah Kahf, Ayatul Kursi, the whole 9. They will spend their entire life. They can't do it. Then there are those people who spend their entire life trying to not miss one Salatul Layl. Then there are those sisters who will try, who will try their entire life just to keep their hijab on. Just to wear socks in the summer. Just to make sure that I'm able to balance my fashion, internal need to be fashionable and still be covered. Their entire life, it's a struggle. Every time they leave their house to go to Costco, it's a fight with themselves. to make sure that my sleeves are on and my hijab is tight and my socks are on. It's a struggle. And they will live their entire life. Worship Allah to the best of your ability. It's all God wants from you. It's the best of your ability. But this defeatist attitude, if I don't get the results, I won't attempt to climb. It's not the deen. It's not Allah. Allah is and always has been consumed with effort, not always results. Okay? And that brings me to an analogy. And I want you to follow this analogy. You guys are with me, inshallah? Yes? My sisters, yes, inshallah? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So daytime months are tricky a little bit, you know? These daytime months. I'm not sure how much you slept or how much you've eaten or how big your breakfast was or how fresh you are, inshallah. But inshallah, it's the middle of the day, inshallah, this is not your siesta or your time to rest, hopefully. Please stay with me, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So the analogy is of a tightrope walker. Okay? You see these guys, right? They go from building top to building top on a tightrope and they walk for some odd reason on top of a really high rope, which is thousands of feet up in the air for some odd reason. You see the people, right? Tightrope walker. Okay? Follow me for a second. The tightrope walker does not start off 1,000 feet in the air. Correct? Because what I'm asking you to do is essentially walk a very tightrope. Am I not? Where somehow you have to balance out the idea of integrating into Western society and still holding on to my Islamic values. It's getting tighter and tighter as the day goes on. Okay? Let's use the analogy. How does a tightrope walker get up that high and be able to go from one rooftop building to the other? He goes through a series of steps, which I want to introduce to all of you. I do my best to make my lectures practical. This is my practical discussion for me, not for all of you. Mashallah, all of you are walking your titles very well. I keep slipping off for some reason. The very first thing the tightrope walker does is that he works on his balance. So he'll start off with standing on top of, let's say, of a coffee table. Or he'll get those hoverboard things and try to balance him out. A person who's imbalanced can never walk the tightrope. Correct? If we wish to live this life that I have been trying to prescribe to all of you tonight, we require balance. Sometimes our fault is that we are imbalanced, either both ways. Either we think Allah wants me to spend my entire days and nights on the musalla, or Allah wants me to make sure that wherever I am, I assimilate. Either Allah wants me to, sell out the dunya for the akhirat, or the akhirat for the dunya. Either Allah wants me to be so hopeful of Him that I minimize my sins, or He wants me to be so fearful of Him that I'm hopeless of His mercy. The moment that I see a youth get a little bit of tawfiq now, all of a sudden now his whole life changes. He stops smiling, stops telling jokes. Every second word is subhanallah, alhamdulillah. Right? There's no time for him to watch a cricket match or a soccer match or a football match or a hockey match. No. Right? Doesn't find the need to sit down and chill with his brothers, because that's not what the deen wants. He just constantly tasbih in one hand walking around, and all of a sudden now the deen is doom and gloom, and that's one extreme. The other extreme is that you change your name and you shorten your name and you trim your beard down to the point where you really need a microscope to see is there a beard on that face or not. Just with the hopes that your neighbor might accept you, quote unquote. So there are extremes. The very first thing a tightrope walker does is that he works on his balance. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. That we have, Allah says, we placed you as an ummatun wasatan, as a middle nation. What does a middle nation mean? It means that you should be a balanced individual, such that you are a shuhada'a ala nas. You actually are this model of life for everybody else. A person who is ba'taqwa, but lives in the dunya. A person who enjoys the luxuries of the dunya but does not attach himself to the luxuries of the dunya. A person who has hope and fear at the exact same level inside their hearts. A person who sits there when it's time for them to pray, they pray hard, they play hard, they love hard. Balanced individual. The first thing he does is that he works on his balance. Okay? Then he nails down his balance. The second thing he does is that he sets up 2 blocks and 2 feet off the ground he sets up a wire or a rope. And he begins now to tread very carefully to now jump on the rope that's only 2 feet off the ground. Meaning what? He goes very, very slowly. Slow and steady. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wa salam.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
He says those acts of worship that are small but consistent are more accepted by Allah than large acts of worship done inconsistently. So start small. Start small. I talk about my camps, right? I'll talk about my camp right now. Very simple analogy, I'm sorry. Every night we have a campfire in our camp. There's always a couple of guys who are really passionate, sometimes overboard, about setting up a fire. I have no idea why. We like to start fires. Okay? Also, my others, so you can calm down. I don't know why you're so anxious about starting a fire, but it's scary, but let's see what you do. The first thing that they do is that they go into the forest and they gather small twigs. Okay? Small twigs. And they put the small twigs in the middle, then they surround the small twigs with what? With big logs. And they first make sure the small twigs are on fire. The fire from the small twigs will light the bigger logs. And then you have an everlasting fire that should last 2 or 3 hours. But you must first light the small twigs on fire. Sometimes those small, consistent acts give life to the bigger acts that we want to do. Sometimes we do smaller acts, small things, but consistent, not small things. Okay? So waking up and say, Wallahi, guy, from tomorrow, this, calm down now, please. Just calm down. Let's go slow. Let's go slow. Start with this, start with that. Okay? He's 2 feet off the ground, the tightrope walker, and he's just going from here to here. That's it. Okay? The third step that he does is that he holds something, this big long rope, whatever you call it, this stick, whatever you call it, a beam, let's say, to what? To make sure that he does it, and he maintains his balance. Meaning he can't do it alone. He needs to hold on to something. Okay. The Quran says, كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرَجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ تَعْمُلُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ. You are the best nation, the Quran says. Amongst all the men, أُخْرَجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ, you are the best nation. What makes you the best nation is that you look out for each other. You hold on to each other. You ensure that no one else gets off the path. Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar makes you the best nation. If somebody strays, you grab and say, oh, where are you going? Stay on the path. The fact that it doesn't happen today is a different discussion altogether, but that's how it should be. That's the one element that Allah recognizes to be the ingredient of the liyat of everybody else. Your elevation over everything else. He's walking down a very tight rope, and he's holding on to something else to help him get through that. He can't do it alone. Can't do it alone. The fourth thing that he does is that he works on his posture. You never watch a tightrope walker bend while he walks, or crouch while he walks. He's straight up. Correct? Straight up. His back is straight. It's going to help him keep his balance. Doesn't bend, doesn't look down, doesn't look behind him. No. The Quran says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. The ones who say that our Lord is Allah, ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا, and they don't bend, or they resist, or they stand up straight, they don't apologize, they don't try to fit in, they hold on to their values. تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ. Angels descend onto them. أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَبْشِرُوا بِالْجَنَّةِ الَّتِي كُنْتُمْ تُوعَدُونَ. With 3 pieces of news. Don't be afraid, don't grieve, and enjoy the bashara and good news of Jannah. But provided what? You can say La ilaha illallah all you want, but ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. They do maqavimat in Farsi, as you call it. They resist the urge to bend and apologize. Are you a Muslim? Yeah, I'm a Muslim, but I'm a Muslim. Are you a Shia? Yeah, but I'm not one of those Shias. What does that mean? I'm one of those crazy ISIS. Hold on. Right? This asase kamdari, this apologetic nature that we have sometimes, is not how you walk down a tightrope. You do it with a full posture of the fact that you stand up straight. Right? Imam Ali is talking to his soldiers, telling them, look, I don't want flags from you. A flag of Punjab is one that goes with the wind. The wind blows right, the flag blows right. The wind blows left, the flag blows left. The flag itself doesn't have any values by itself. It goes as the wind takes it. I want you to be what? A jabal, a mountain. The wind can roar all it wants, the mountain stays where it is. No matter how difficult the wind is, how strong the wind is, the mountain doesn't move from where it is. Your posture has to be straight in this day and age. There's no bending now, apologizing, trying to water down my deen to get the impression of someone who tomorrow won't be impressed by me. The 5th thing that he does, a tightrope walker does, is that he always looks forward and straight. And where are his eyes fixated? On his purpose. That ledge, I have to get to that ledge. Never do you see an individual who's on a tightrope walker, look down, or look behind him, or look to the left, or look to the right. I talked about the fact that last night, sometimes the worst person for us to gauge our own self-building is who? Is us. We're our worst judge of character. Either we're too lenient, or we're too hard. And one thing that I wish I had more time to talk about is that we are not individuals who know how to forgive ourselves. Our youth especially, they have it convinced that God's mercy, God's istighfar, God's repentance is for everybody else, but not for me. Asad, you have no idea how many mistakes I've made. You have no idea the blunders I've made, the sins that I have made, how much skeletons are in my closet, Sayyid. You have no idea. So you talk about God's mercy, God's mercy, God's mercy, but God will look at me and say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't even help this guy. It's way too much damage going on here. As my teacher once said, the biggest sin that we could ever commit to Allah is to think that my sins are more powerful than His mercy is. That's a bigger sin than you and I have ever committed. We have to learn to forgive ourselves and move on. The example I gave last year in Toronto was you're driving a car. Imagine now you're in the passenger seat and you're being driven somewhere. And this person is driving now. He's roaring 100 clicks down the highway. But he's driving like this. Looking at his what? His rear view mirror. The rear view mirror is this big. There's a huge windshield in front of you that's double, triple in size to tell you what's coming. But he's obsessed with everything that I've just driven past. So he's driving and saying, oh look, I hit that curb, I hit that animal, I hit that garbage can, that speed bump, that's cracked, that bump. And meanwhile, there's 1,000 more coming in front of him. And you as a passenger are very concerned, obviously. Because he's driving like this. Can you just look forward and drive? And not worry about what you hit before? Make sure you don't hit it again. It's gone, let it go now. When Allah says, I've forgiven you to the point, Hadith says, to the point where the sin never occurred to begin with. I have forgiven you to the point where the sin never occurred to begin with. Somebody wrongs you and you forgive them, but how many of us truly forget what they did? Very rarely, I'm sorry. Allah says it's as if it never happened to begin with. But we're still stuck on the rear view mirror. That's this big. Drive using this huge windshield in front of you. Don't drive looking behind you. He's constantly walking inch by inch by inch, trying to get to his purpose, his hadaf. He never looks behind him. Number 7 is very slow pace. You'll never see him rush and sprint down that road. He goes foot by foot by foot. It's not a race. It's what? It's a journey. Right? No one's timing you. You don't need to rush up the mountain or rush through that life. No, go very, very slowly. Crawl if you have to. Look, the example I'll give you is a very simple one, right? To get to Matthew Bai's house, we come out of this center, we make a left. We go down 59 to 100, we get home. Is that accurate? There you go. Not bad for 2 days, right? Instead, I come out and I make a right. And I go this way, opposite. And I bolt it down. I mean, I drive faster than Matthew Bai drives. That's really fast. Right? 120 down. And I think, oh my God, I'm home any minute. And the faster I go, the further I am from my destination. Correct? Instead, though, I come out and I make a left, and I should, but instead I go 20 kilometers an hour. And I'm crawling speed. But eventually, I'll get home. The other way, I'll drive as fast as I want, but I won't get home. You've identified that that's your purpose. You can take 20 kilometers an hour of a journey. You'll get there eventually. Because Allah is process-driven, not result-driven. It's about the route, not about the GPS destination. If the route is accurate and you follow the GPS correctly, no matter how slow you go, you'll get to your hadaf eventually. He's in no hurry. This tightrope walker is in no hurry. Very slowly he'll go. The last two of them aside. The second to last one is the fact that when he loses his balance or he thinks he's slipping, what does he do? He stops. Regains his focus and continues. Sometimes it's important for my youth especially to stop for a moment. Take a pause. It's okay to do that. You're climbing up a mountain, you have no idea where your next stop will be. Don't climb down the mountain, stop halfway through the mountain, figure out what my next route is. Sometimes life throws, this dunya throws everything at our youth. It's very hard. The way you guys live right now is far more tougher than me growing up in Toronto. Not even close. Back then, I'm an old word now. Back then, there was no social media, there was no internet, there was nothing, no smartphones. Everything now is in the palm of your hand. The entire world literally is in the palm of your hand. And that device is beside you at 2 o'clock in the morning, inside your room where everyone is sleeping, and you can't sleep. That's a test. That's a jihad for you. Wasn't for me back then when I was your age. So sometimes it requires you to just stop for a moment. Take a deep breath, find out what I'm doing, and then go again. I mentioned last night that Allah allows us to reset and hit the reset button 1,000 times if we want to. Just don't climb down the mountain. Don't look behind you. Don't turn around. Keep going forward. If you have to stop on the road, stop on the road. But it's okay. Regain your focus, regain your purpose, and begin and continue your journey. The last one is that after a while, he has a safety net beneath him. If he does slip and fall, the net catches him. And our safety net is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قَالَ لَا تَخَافَ إِنَّنِي مَعَكُمَا. Do not be afraid, he says to Nabi Musa, Nabi Harun. إِنَّنِي مَعَكُمَا. I'm surely with you. I'm with you. I'm right beside you. I have your back. One story, the mother of Nabi Musa. Inshallah, my sister listening. The mother of Nabi Musa. The mother of Nabi Musa gave birth to Nabi Musa at a time where newborn boys were being picked and chosen and decapitated one by one. Because Fir'aun was told that there will be a male who will destroy your kingdom, correct? So now you have this mother who knows she's having a boy, who's pregnant, who delivers this boy, and then she's told, وَأَلْقِهِ فِي الْيَمِّ. Place them in a basket and put them down the river. How many of my moms in the audience are not going to do that? Tell me. You just gave birth to your boy after 8-9 months of a pregnancy. You gave him a name, this and that. And now you're told by Allah to put him in a basket down a free-flowing river. It's not easy. And فَأَلْقِهِ فِي الْيَمِّ, those of you who know Arabic, it's not the idea that she, very carefully, aram se, said her khilafis and very slowly, no. She rushed, put him in a basket and pushed the rest of the basket down the river. The mother of a newborn son did not knowing, will the basket flip? Will it drown? Will an animal consume it? Will Fir'aun's men see him? What will happen to my baby? But she's told by Allah through Wahi to do this, she did it. And the verses go on to say, again, the humanizing of the Quran. The verses go on to say that there comes a moment where the mother of Nabi Musa is about to explode. And say, that's my son down the river. Because there comes a moment where he no longer is in view of her. It's one thing where you can see, okay, he's in the basket, he's safe, he's going, and then the river takes him, let's say, this way, and he's no longer in view anymore. Now she has no idea what happened. And the Quran captures that moment very beautifully. She's about to scream, somebody save my son, and by doing that, she would have caught the attention of Fir'aun's men. They would have grabbed Nabi Musa and decapitated him. And Allah intervenes at that moment. And says, وَرَبَطْنَا عَلَىٰ قَلْبِهَا. We grabbed her heart and we tied it. And we secured it. Rababa in Arabic means to tie something together, to strengthen something together. Look, I'll give you a very simple example, right? Let's say you're playing with your child, you're playing ball, let's say, okay? My son, my little boy Asad, he loves basketball, okay? Big basketball player. So we have nets everywhere all over the house, okay? So we're shooting baskets, let's say, for example, okay? And the basket hits the rim, goes, and is about to knock down, let's say, my wife's favorite mug. And I know that if that mug breaks, oh, I'm in trouble, not Asad. So it falls, and the handle chips a little bit. And if I don't secure the mug right away, the mug will shatter into pieces. So I grab the mug and I either put an elastic around it, or I glue it, or I tape it. I just secure the fact that it won't shatter into pieces. That's called rabata in Arabic. To ensure that it doesn't shatter into pieces. Allah says at that moment when Nabi Musa's mother's heart is about to shatter into pieces, وَرَبَطْنَا عَلَىٰ قَلْبِهَا. Grab her heart and we secure it. Hold tight now. Don't lose it now. Don't make your heart shatter into pieces. That safety that we have, that source that we have that ensures that our heart doesn't shatter into pieces is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Provided that what? We keep going down this tight rope. And ensuring that I have a safety net. If by chance I fall and slip, the one to capture me is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The kamal is sometimes not to be ma'soom. I'm sorry. Sometimes the kamal is when you hit rock bottom and you've sinned and sinned and sinned. You are scratching rock bottom. At that moment to call out to Allah is the kamal. فَنَادَى فِي ظُلُمَاتٍ أَنْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنْتَ سُبْحَانَكَ إِنِّي كُنْتُ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Nabi Yunus in the belly of the whale, surrounded by darkness, calls out to Allah, glory be to you. If anyone is the cause of this predicament, I am the cause of this predicament. I've hit rock bottom as a prophet, I'm in darkness, and I will not forget you. What I've been asking for the past 3 days now is not easy. But we live in a very difficult era, I'm sorry. We can choose to be individuals who want the best of both worlds, and you'll come to a quick realization that that's not possible. Or we can sit there and ensure that these very 6 or 7 steps, practically speaking, are possible. The only thing I want for all of you is to give yourselves a fighting chance. Don't settle for anything less. You're far greater than that. You've been given the tools to succeed. God knows it, but we don't know it yet. So just because you can't get to the summit, don't avoid the climb. The climb is the kamal, not the summit. The climb is that perfection, not the summit itself. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali
Zainab, she took after Ashura, it was a process. It was a process. Yazid ruled for 2 years after the event of Karbala. He didn't end Yazidiyat, but he unveiled Yazidiyat for its reality. Educated those people who were jahil, woke up those who were asleep. That this is the true Yazid of your time. And the one that was instrumental in doing that was Bibi Zainab. Many people say, it's accurate, I truly believe that Imam Hussein's Shahada would have been left on the plains of Iraq and maybe forgotten in the northern part of Iraq had Bibi Zainab not taken that mission all the way in the courtyard of that very same Yazid, in the belly of the beast, and looked him dead in the eye and unveiled him for what he truly is. If that didn't happen, I don't know where this mission of Karbala would reach to. Ummul Masa'ib is a devastating laqab of hers. Devastating laqab of hers. Many historians have said that, and there has to be some truth to it, I think, that what she went through, the musibah she went through, hatta even Imam Hussein, didn't go through. She witnessed every shaheed in the day of Ashura. Hatta even her brother. Abu Fazl wasn't there when Imam Hussein was killed. Al-Akbar was not there when Imam Hussein was killed. But who was standing up to the Zainabiyya? He was Zainabiyya. She took that gham and that grief, and she was very difficult journey from Kufa, from Karbala to Kufa to Sham, watching kid by kid die on the way. Arriving in Sham, arriving in the Darbar of Yazid, in the mosque of Yazid, standing there alone on that platform, for the entire world to look at. She stood there by herself. She delivered that, and she took this entire mission back to Medina and educated every single individual in Medina. The 21st of Ramadan is here. The doctor has come and told Imam Ali the poison from Ibn al-Muljim sword has now spread throughout your whole body. It's only a matter of time now, you'll leave this world. It's time now for your nasiha. Give your children your advice. So he did, one by one, he gave their advice. Then there comes a moment where he brings Zainab. Sits down, Bibi Zainab. To my daughters in the audience, you know how close your father is to you. To my dads who have daughters, you know how close your daughters are. This was Zainab. The zinat of her father is a literal tradition of the name. The beauty of her father. He begins now to tell her that Zainab, after me, you'll go through this difficulty and that difficulty. In this very Kufa, you will face this and you will face that. I want you to make sure with every difficulty, you remain patient. You remain patient. You remain patient. And she's listening to this. Imagine her dying, father telling her all this. You remain patient. With every single sentence, she says, yes, Baba, yes, Baba, yes, Baba, I'll be patient, Baba, I'll be patient, Baba, I'll be patient, Baba. When he's done, Bibi Zainab says, Baba, can I ask you a question now? He says, of course. She says, after I go through all